Primary 2-3, it's Mrs. Patterson here, and I'm here today for your summarising and reading lesson and chapter 4 of Fantastic Mr. Fox. So together during home learning we have been working on our Super 6 reading strategies, and so far we have looked at making predictions before, during and after reading, and also we have been learning about visualising and reading and how visualising helps us to remember and better understand a text. So our next strategy is summarising. So today we are learning to understand what a summary is. We are learning to identify and summarise the main ideas in a text. So what is a summary? Some of you might have heard of this skill before, and maybe you've been working on it in class previously. But today we are looking at what a summary is, and you're going to be using this skill to summarise some of the events that have happened so far in our class novel Fantastic Mr. Fox. So a summary covers the main points of something, and it's really a really important skill that you will use throughout your whole lives. You may be asked to give a summary, which means a brief account of something, of a phone conversation, or a summary of what was discussed at a meeting. If you're summarising a text, you use your own words to explain the most important parts of the story. And if you're able to summarise a text and think about what the main ideas are, this shows that you have really understood what you have read and you understand what the main ideas are. When you summarise a text, you only use the main ideas and the most important parts of the story, and you don't need to include every detail. So this little picture at the side says summarise it, and it says shorter than the text, use your own words, main ideas only, sum. And that should help you remember how to summarise something. So shorter than the text, use your own words, and main ideas only. So when you listen to the next chapter of the story, try to think about what the main ideas are. What are the most important things that have happened in the story so far? And remember, we're only thinking about the main ideas when we're summarising. If you have a piece of paper or a sticky note at home that's quite small, you could use this to write down what you think the main ideas are. A good way to summarise is to see how much you can fit into a sticky note, and this forces us to only think about the key points. As you listen, you can ask yourself some questions about the text, starting with each of these question words. This will help you think about what the key points are and what the most important parts of the chapter are. Who, what, when, where, why and how. I wonder if you can think about each of these words and try to answer some of the questions that come into your head. So who is in the chapter? What is happening in the chapter? Where are the main characters? Why is this happening? So together let's read Fantastic Mr. Fox chapter 4, The Terrible Shovels. And remember, you can listen to this on the YouTube video, or you can open the PowerPoint to read it yourselves. The Terrible Shovels. Down in the hole, Mrs. Fox was tenderly licking the stump of Mr. Fox's tail to stop the bleeding. It was the finest tail for miles around, she said between licks. It hurts, said Mr. Fox. I know it does, sweetheart, but it'll soon get better. And it will soon grow again, Dad, said one of the small foxes. It will never grow again, said Mr. Fox. I shall be tailless for the rest of my life. He looked very glum. There was no food for the foxes that night, and soon the children dozed off. Then Mrs. Fox dozed off. But Mr. Fox couldn't sleep because of the pain on the stump of his tail. Well, he thought, I suppose I'm lucky to be alive at all. And now they've found our hole, we're going to have to move out as soon as possible. We'll never get any peace if we... What was that? He turned his head sharply and listened. The noise he heard now was the most frightening noise a fox can ever hear. The scrape, scrape, scraping of shovels digging into the soil. Wake up, he shouted. They're digging us out. Mrs. Fox was wide awake in 1 second. She sat up, quivering all over. Are you sure that's it? She whispered. I'm positive. Listen. They'll kill my children, cried Mrs. Fox. Never, said Mr. Fox. But darling, they will, sobbed Mrs. Fox. You know they will. Scrunch, scrunch, scrunch went the shovels above their heads. Small stones and bits of earth began falling from the roof of the tunnel. "How will they kill us, Mummy?" asked one of the small foxes. His round black eyes were huge with fright. "Will there be dogs?" he said. Mrs. Fox began to cry. She gathered her 4 children close to her and held them tight. Suddenly there was an especially loud crunch above their heads, and the sharp end of a shovel came right through the ceiling. The sight of this awful thing seemed to have an electric effect upon Mr. Fox. He jumped up and shouted, "I've got it! Come on! There's not a moment to lose. Why didn't I think of it before?" "Think of what, Dad?" "A fox can dig quicker than a man," shouted Mr. Fox, beginning to dig. "Nobody in the world can dig as quick as a fox." The soil began to fly out furiously behind Mr. Fox as he started to dig for dear life with his front feet. Mrs. Fox ran forward to help him. So did the 4 children. "Go downwards," ordered Mr. Fox. "We've got to go deep as we possibly can." The tunnel began to grow longer and longer. It sloped steeply downward. Deeper and deeper below the surface of the ground it went. The mother and the father and all 4 of the children were digging together. Their front legs were moving so fast you couldn't see them, and gradually the scrunching and scraping of the shovels became fainter and fainter. After about an hour, Mr. Fox stopped digging. "Hold it," he said. They all stopped. They turned and looked back up the long tunnel they had just dug. All was quiet. "Phew," said Mr. Fox. "I think we've done it. They'll never get as deep as this. Well done, everyone." They all sat down, panting for breath, and Mrs. Fox said to her children, "I should like you to know that if it wasn't for your father, we should all be dead by now. Your father is a fantastic fox." Mr. Fox looked at his wife and she smiled. He loved her more than ever when she said things like that. So that is the end of chapter 4. Talk to an adult at home. Can you use your own words to summarise the main things that happened in that chapter? Remember, a summary is a brief account of the most important things that have happened. Can you think of 3 main things that happened in that chapter? Talk to an adult at home and see if you can think about 3 things and use your own words to talk about what those main things were. What were the main events that happened in that chapter? So now if you can open your learning packs and find this worksheet, you can complete the summarising task. So use your own words to summarise the important parts or the main events in the story so far. So who are the main characters? Where is the story set? What is the problem in the story? And what are the main things that have happened so far? So for this task, you're thinking about what are the main ideas and summarising the story overall after you have discussed with an adult what are the main events of the chapter that we just listened to. Challenge. What is summarising? How does summarising help you to become a better reader? Can you explain what summarising means to someone at home? If you want to, you could choose a book you like at home and write a summary for it. Remember to use your own words and only include the main ideas. You can complete this challenge task after you have completed your summarising activity, and if you would like to, you can post any work you do on summarising on Teams. See you soon, everyone. Bye-bye.